The Great Hall of Corinth 7 stretched for nearly a kilometer, its ceiling lost in shadows and soft blue light. 12 massive chairs formed a circle at the center, each one built for a different species, each one representing a world that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Ambassador Park Do-hun stood in the middle of this circle, feeling very small. He had prepared his speech for 6 months. Every word was chosen carefully. Every argument was built on logic and fairness. Humanity had been a member of the Galactic Compact for 60 years now. They had followed every rule. They had paid every fee. They had smiled through every insult and bowed through every demand. Now, finally, they were asking for something in return. Honored members of the Council, Do-hun began, his voice steady despite the fear in his chest. The Unified Terran Government requests expanded trade rights in the Vega Corridor and colonial permissions for 3 uninhabited systems in Sector 9. The Solari High Minister shifted in his chair. His species looked somewhat like tall insects, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber lights like black mirrors. His name was difficult for humans to pronounce, so most simply called him Minister Krath. "Continue," Krath said, though his tone suggested he was already bored. Do-hun pressed on. He spoke of Earth's contributions to galactic trade. He mentioned the taxes humanity paid, the restrictions they accepted, the military vessels they had dismantled to prove they were peaceful. He talked about the 60 years of loyalty and cooperation. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Then Krath began to laugh. It was not a human laugh. It was a clicking, rattling sound that echoed off the walls. One by one, other delegates joined in. The Drovathi representative, a creature built like a bear with scales, slapped his massive hand against his chair. The Fenari ambassador, small and fox-like, covered her mouth but could not hide her amusement. "You speak of contributions," Krath said when the laughter died down. "Let us examine these contributions." He waved one of his 4 hands, and holographic images filled the air around Do-hun. Documents, treaties, agreements. Each one glowed blue in the darkness. "The mineral extraction limits of 2289, Krath read aloud. "Humanity agreed to mine no more than 12% of any asteroid field they accessed. Signed by your government." Another document floated forward. "The Fleet Restriction Accords of 2291. Humanity agreed to maintain no more than 50 warships, none exceeding light cruiser class. Signed by your government." More documents appeared. The Technology Embargo Clauses. The Colonial Boundary Agreement. The Research Limitation Treaty. Each one represented something humanity had given up to join galactic society. "You came to us 60 years ago as beggars," Krath continued. "Your species had barely reached your nearest stars. You had no allies, no resources, no power. We could have ignored you. We could have taken your worlds and used your people as labor. Instead, we allowed you to join us." He leaned forward, his compound eyes fixed on Do-hun. "You signed away your sovereignty for scraps. You accepted limits that no other species would accept. And now you come here, to this chamber, and ask for more?" The clicking laughter returned. "The answer is no." The Drovathi delegate spoke next. His voice was deep and rumbling. "The human believes 60 years of obedience earns reward. He does not understand. 60 years is nothing. My species waited 400 years before we were allowed to expand beyond our home system. Perhaps another century of good behavior," the Fenari ambassador added with a sharp smile. "Then we can discuss your request again." Do-hun stood perfectly still. His face showed nothing. Inside, something cold and hard was forming in his chest. "I understand," he said quietly. "May I ask one question before I leave?" Krath waved a hand dismissively. "Ask. In 60 years, Has humanity ever broken a single treaty? Have we ever failed to meet a single obligation? The chamber went quiet. No, Krath admitted. You have been acceptable. Then I ask the council to remember that, Dohan said. Remember that when you had our loyalty, you chose to mock it. He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. Ambassador Park, Krath called after him. One more thing. Dohun stopped, but did not turn around. Go home to your little world, Krath said. Tell your leaders what happened here today. Tell them to know their place. Humanity exists in this galaxy because we allow it. Nothing more. The laughter followed Dohun out of the chamber, through the corridors of Corinth 7, all the way to his ship. His assistant, a young woman named Cho Unji, met him at the airlock. Her face was pale. Ambassador, I heard. Not here, Dohun interrupted. Not until we are in fold space. They boarded the diplomatic vessel in silence. Dohun sat in his cabin as the ship departed the station, as it traveled far enough from the gravity well to engage its faster-than-light drive. As the stars stretched and twisted, and the vessel slipped between dimensions. Only then did he open a secure channel. The encryption was not standard diplomatic code. It was something older, something that officially did not exist. A single question appeared on his screen. Report status. Dohun typed 3 words in response. Wake the Admiral. He sent the message and leaned back in his chair. Through the small window, fold space swirled in colors that human eyes could not fully process. Somewhere beyond that chaos, Earth waited. Home waited. 60 years, Dohun thought. 60 years of bowing. 60 years of accepting insults with a smile. 60 years of being told that humanity was small and weak, and should be grateful for whatever scraps the great powers allowed them. The Council believed they knew humanity. They believed they had seen everything Earth could offer. They were wrong. Dohun closed his eyes and allowed himself a small smile. The game was about to change, and the Council had no idea what was coming. They had laughed at humanity today. Soon they would learn that some species do not forget. Some species do not forgive. And some species spend 60 years preparing for a single moment. That moment had finally arrived. Fleet Admiral Yoon Jia received the message at 3 a.m, Geneva time. She was already awake. At 67 years old, she had learned that sleep was a luxury she could not always afford. Her office was buried deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a facility that did not appear on any official map. The walls were lined with screens showing ship positions, resource flows, and intelligence reports from across human space. Most of this information was classified at levels that even the Galactic Council's spies could not access. 3 words glowed on her personal terminal. Wake the Admiral. Gia read them twice. Then she stood and walked to a wall safe hidden behind a painting of old Earth sailing ships. Inside was a single data chip labeled Ember 7. She had waited 30 years for this moment. Part of her had hoped it would never come. Another part, the part she kept buried deep, had been counting the days. Within the hour, 4 people gathered in her secure conference room. General Baek Sun-ho arrived first. He was a large man with gray hair and hands that had known both farming and fighting. He commanded every ground soldier in the Terran military. Dr. Kang Yuna came next. She was small and thin, with eyes that seemed to look through people rather than at them. Her mind held secrets that would terrify the galaxy if they ever escaped. Director Shin Tae-woo represented the intelligence division. He was the kind of man who could stand in a room full of people and be forgotten the moment he left. This made him very good at his job. Finally, Secretary Han Mirei arrived. She handled all of Earth's foreign affairs, which meant she had spent decades smiling at alien diplomats who treated her like a servant. The smile was gone tonight. Gia played the recording from Corinth 7 without comment. They watched the entire session. Dohun's speech, the laughter, the parade of treaties, and Krath's final insult. When it ended, no one spoke for a long moment. 60 years, Mireille said quietly. Her voice was barely above a whisper. 60 years of bowing to them, of accepting every humiliation with grace, of telling our people to be patient. The patience ends tonight, Gia replied. She inserted the data chip into the room's central console. Files began to spread across every screen. General Bake leaned forward, his eyes scanning the information. Project Ember. I knew pieces of it. I did not know it was this large. No one knew all of it, Gia said. That was the point. She began to explain. 60 years ago, when humanity first made contact with the galactic community, the government faced a choice. They could accept the Council's terms and become a minor species, restricted and controlled. Or they could refuse and face destruction by forces they could not hope to match. They chose a third option. They accepted the terms publicly while preparing secretly for the day those terms would no longer bind them. The Council believes we have 43 patrol vessels, Gia said. According to the Fleet Restriction Accords, we are not permitted anything larger than a light cruiser. She pulled up a new screen. Ship after ship appeared, each one hidden in a different location. Asteroid bases, moons with hollow cores, stations buried in the atmospheres of gas giants where no one thought to look. We have 412 combat vessels. 60 of them are heavy battleships. 23 are carrier class. She paused. And then there is the Colossus. The image that appeared made even General Bake draw a sharp breath. It was a mobile battle station, 3 kilometers long, armed with weapons that the galaxy had banned centuries ago. We were told to dismantle our weapons research. Dr. Yuna spoke for the first time. We did not. Director Taewoo nodded slowly. Every decommissioned ship was secretly upgraded and stored. Every banned technology was developed in hidden facilities. Every scientist the Council told us to dismiss was moved to classified projects. The Council thinks they know us, Mireille said. They think we are weak because we acted weak. We acted weak because we were weak, Gia corrected. 60 years ago they could have destroyed us with a fraction of their combined fleet. So we smiled. We bowed. We waited. She looked around the room at each face. We are no longer weak. The vote was taken. It was unanimous. Project Ember would move to its final phase. Over the next 7 days, humanity went silent. Trade ships returned to Earth space. Diplomatic vessels stopped responding to communications. Ambassador Dohan's office on Corinth 7 went dark. The Council noticed, of course. They sent inquiries, then demands, then threats. All were ignored. In secret, humanity prepared. Ships that had slept for decades woke up. Soldiers who had trained in hidden facilities received deployment orders. Scientists who had spent their careers developing forbidden technology ran final tests on weapons that should not exist. Admiral Gia spent most of the week aboard the TES Remembrance, the flagship of the Hidden Fleet. She walked its corridors, spoke with its crew, and watched as it prepared for war. On the 6th day, Lieutenant Oh Jisoo approached her on the bridge. The young tactical officer was nervous, but trying not to show it. Admiral, may I ask a question? Go ahead. Are we really going to do this? Challenge the entire council. Gia looked at the young woman for a long moment. Lieutenant, what do you know about Earth history? Some, Admiral. Then you know that our species has faced extinction many times. Ice ages, plagues, wars that killed millions. Every time, we survived because we refused to accept our end. Gia turned to look out at the stars. The Council thinks humanity is young and foolish. They are half right. We are young. But our ancestors learned wisdom through suffering that these aliens cannot imagine. She placed a hand on Jisu's shoulder. We do not want war, Lieutenant, but we will no longer accept slavery with a smile. The choice of what comes next belongs to them. On the seventh day, Admiral Yoon Jia sat in her command chair and gave the order to broadcast. Every screen in the galaxy was about to show humanity's true face. The silent week was over. The reckoning had begun. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called at the demand of Minister Krath. He had been trying to reach human diplomatic channels for 6 days. Every message went unanswered. Every communication was met with silence. The 12 delegates gathered in the Great Hall of Corinth 7, their voices filled with confusion and growing anger. Ambassador Dohun's chair remained empty. This is unacceptable behavior, the Drovathi representative growled. They cannot simply ignore us. Perhaps they are having internal problems, the Fenari ambassador suggested. Their species is known for political instability. Kraft's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights as he scanned the room. Whatever the cause, this silence must end. We should send a delegation to Earth directly. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered. The lights dimmed. A new image appeared, broadcast on every frequency that existed. Admiral Yoon Jia stood on a bridge that none of them recognized. Behind her, through massive windows, stars stretched into infinity. She wore a black uniform with silver markings that did not match any human military rank they had seen before. To the Council of 12 Worlds, she began, her voice calm and clear. I am Fleet Admiral Yoon Jia of the Unified Terran Navy. I speak with the full authority of humanity's government. Krath leaned forward. Admiral, you will explain this interruption immediately. Where is Ambassador Park? Ambassador Park has been reassigned, Jia replied. He no longer speaks for Earth. I do. She paused, letting her words settle over the chamber. The Unified Terran Government hereby nullifies the following treaties effective immediately. A list appeared beside her image. The mineral extraction limits, the fleet restriction accords, the technology embargo clauses, the colonial boundary agreement, the research limitation treaty. Every document that humanity had signed in 60 years of membership appeared and then dissolved into static. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other. The Drovathi representative slammed his fist against his chair. Krath's clicking voice cut through the chaos. You cannot do this. These are binding agreements. Your species will face sanctions, blockades, military action. Jia waited for the noise to fade before continuing. Furthermore, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Compact, effective immediately. We will no longer pay fees. We will no longer accept restrictions. We will no longer bow. The chamber fell silent. This was not possible. No species had ever left the compact. No one had ever dared. You are making a terrible mistake, the Fenari ambassador said, her voice shaking. The combined fleet will do what it believes necessary, Jia interrupted. But before you make that decision, there is more you should hear. Another list appeared. Star systems, 17 of them. The following territories are now under Terran protection, Jia announced. Vega Corridor and all systems within it. The outer ring colonies of Sector 7. The mining platforms of the Krath Nebula. Krath stood from his chair. Those systems belong to the Solari. You are claiming our territory. Your territory was built on resources stolen from smaller species who could not fight back, Jia said. We can fight back. She read the full list. 3 systems the Solari claimed as their own. 2 Drovathi mining colonies. 12 independent worlds that had been asking for protection from Council interference for decades. This is an act of war, the Drovathi representative declared. This is an act of freedom, Jia corrected. You made us sign those treaties when we were weak. We signed because we had no choice. Now, We have a choice. She straightened in her chair, her eyes seeming to look directly at each delegate despite the transmission being one way. You have 48 hours to evacuate civilian personnel from the territories we have claimed. Military assets will be considered hostile and treated accordingly. And if we refuse, Krath demanded, if we send our fleets to remind you of your place. For the first time, Gia smiled. It was not a warm expression. Minister Krath, you told our ambassador to know his place. You told him that humanity exists because you allow it. She leaned forward slightly. Come and teach us our place. We will be waiting. The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal. The delegates sat in stunned silence. Finally, Krath spoke. Contact every fleet commander in our territory. Mobilize everything. We will show these humans what happens when an inferior species forgets its position. The combined fleet was assembled within 36 hours. 300 warships from 6 different species gathered at the edge of Solari space. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in a century. Admiral Ro Kyung-soo commanded the Solari flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Truth. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. He had never lost a battle. Intelligence reports indicate the humans have 43 patrol vessels, his tactical officer reported. Light cruisers at most. This will be a short engagement. Ro nodded, his compound eyes scanning the star charts. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum speed. We will end this foolishness before it spreads. The combined fleet entered fold space as one. They would arrive at Earth within 2 days. They expected to find a desperate species trying to defend itself with outdated technology and limited numbers. They were completely, terribly wrong. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Gia watched the fleet movements on her tactical display. Her officers worked silently around her, each one focused on their task. Admiral, Lieutenant O. Jisoo reported, the combined fleet has departed. Estimated arrival in 47 hours. Good. Gia stood and addressed her crew. Send the signal to all Ember units. It is time to show the galaxy what humanity has become. Across human space, hidden ships began to move. Stations hidden for decades powered up their systems. The trap that humanity had spent 60 years building was about to close. The Council had sent their armada to crush a weak species. They would find something else entirely. The combined fleet emerged from fold space at the edge of the Sol system, 300 warships strong. Admiral Ro Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of the Eternal Truth, watching the stars return to their normal patterns through the main viewport. Tactical report, he ordered. His officers studied the sensors with growing confusion. Admiral, I am detecting. This cannot be correct. What is it? The human fleet. It is not 43 vessels. The officer's voice trembled. Sensors show 412 combat ships. Ro turned sharply. Impossible. Run the scan again. I have run it 3 times, Admiral. The readings are accurate. Ships began to appear across the system. They emerged from behind moons, from asteroid shadows, from places where no vessel should have been hiding. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, each one bristling with weapons that the Council had explicitly forbidden humanity from developing. And at the center of the formation, something massive blocked out the stars. The Colossus was 3 kilometers long. Its surface was covered with gun emplacements, missile tubes, and systems that Ro's tactical officer could not even identify. It moved slowly, majestically, like a predator that knew it had no equal. A communication signal blinked on Ro's console. He accepted it. Admiral Yoonjia's face appeared on the screen. She sat calmly in her command chair, hands folded in her lap. Admiral Ro, she said, you were not invited. Ro tried to keep his voice steady. Admiral Gia, this display changes nothing. You are still outnumbered by experienced combat forces. Your ships are untested. Your crews have never seen real battle. Perhaps, Gia admitted. Would you like a demonstration of what our untested ships can do? Before Ro could respond, the Colossus moved. A single beam of light shot from its forward section, brilliant white against the darkness of space. It struck a barren moon orbiting the system's sixth planet. The effect was immediate. Cracks spread across the moon's surface like spiderwebs on glass. Heat bloomed from within, visible even from this distance. The entire structure began to break apart, fragments spinning away into the void. In 90 seconds, the moon was gone. Where it had been, only rubble remained. That was our mining laser, Gia said quietly. We use it to break apart asteroids for resource extraction. The weapons are larger. Ro's bridge crew had gone completely silent. On his tactical display, he could see the combined fleet beginning to drift out of formation. Captains were pulling back without orders, afraid of what they were witnessing. You destroyed a moon, Ro said. An uninhabited moon with no strategic value, Gia corrected. We are not murderers, Admiral. We do not wish to kill anyone. But we will defend ourselves, and we will no longer accept the position your council assigned us. Ro's communication officer spoke urgently. Admiral, incoming transmission from the council. Priority override. The screen split. Minister Krath appeared beside Gia's image, his compound eyes wide with what might have been fear. Admiral Ro, you are ordered to withdraw immediately, Krath said. Return to council space. Do not engage. Minister, we have 300 ships. You have 300 ships facing 400, including a weapon that just destroyed a moon. Krath's voice was sharp. We will not sacrifice our fleet in a battle we cannot win. Retreat, now. Ro stood motionless for a long moment, staring at Gia's calm face on the remaining screen. Admiral, Gia said, I give you my word that no human ship will fire unless fired upon. Take your fleet home. Tell your council what you saw here. Then perhaps we can discuss the future like equals. Ro wanted to argue. He wanted to order an attack to prove that the great powers of the galaxy could not be intimidated by a species that had been nothing 60 years ago. But he was a soldier, not a fool. All ships, reverse course, he ordered. Prepare for full space transition. The combined fleet turned away from Sol. 300 warships that had come to crush a rebellion retreated without firing a single shot. On the bridge of the Remembrance, cheering broke out. Officers embraced each other. Some wept openly. Lieutenant O. Jisoo remained at her station, watching the alien fleet disappear into fold space. Admiral Gia walked over to stand beside her. You are quiet, Lieutenant, Gia observed. I am thinking, Admiral. Jisoo's voice was soft. 60 years. 60 years of being told we were weak, of being laughed at, of watching our representatives bow to aliens who treated us like insects. She turned to look at Gia. We were never weak, were we? We were waiting. Gia nodded slowly. We were preparing. There is a difference. Weakness is accepting that nothing can change. Preparation is knowing that change will come and being ready for it. What happens now? Now we see if the Council can learn. We did not build this fleet because we wanted war. We built it because we wanted respect. If they give us respect, there will be peace. Gia paused. If they do not, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. The great powers had retreated from humanity. The species that had been mocked and dismissed for 60 years had revealed strength that no one had suspected. On 100 worlds, smaller species watched the reports with growing hope. If humanity could stand against the Council, perhaps change was possible. Perhaps the old order was not as permanent as everyone had believed. On Earth, People gathered in the streets to watch the news feeds. They saw their ships standing proud in the darkness of space. They saw the combined fleet turning away. For the first time in 60 years, they stood tall. And in her quarters aboard the Remembrance, Admiral Yoon Jia allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The demonstration was complete. The message had been sent. Now came the hard part, building something better than what they had torn down. 6 months passed. The galaxy slowly adjusted to a new reality. Human ships now patrolled the Vega corridor. Terran flags flew over 17 star systems. The technology that had been forbidden to humanity was openly displayed, and no one came to take it away. The combined fleet remained in Council space, rebuilt and reinforced, but afraid to test itself against the weapons that had shattered a moon. Trade continued, but carefully. Communication flowed, but cautiously. Finally, the Council requested a meeting. Ambassador Park Do-hun returned to Corin 7 on a bright morning, station time. He walked the same corridors he had walked 6 months ago. He passed the same alien delegates who had laughed at his speech. None of them laughed now. The Great Hall looked different. The 12 chairs were still arranged in a circle, but a 13th had been added. It sat at the highest point, carved from dark metal, bearing the symbol of United Earth. Do-hun did not take the chair immediately. He stood in the center of the circle, just as he had before, and waited. Minister Krath spoke first. Ambassador Park, the Council welcomes you back. Minister Krath, Do-hun nodded politely. I am pleased to be here. We have studied your government's proposal for a reformed alliance, the new compact you call it. Kraft shifted uncomfortably in his massive chair. It is ambitious. It is fair, Do-hun corrected. Equal voting rights for all member species. Trade agreements based on mutual benefit rather than tribute. No more junior members paying fees while senior powers take resources. You ask us to give up advantages we have held for centuries, the Drovathi representative rumbled. I ask you to share power with species who have earned the right to stand beside you. The old system created resentment. It created rebellion. It created what humanity became. A new system, built on respect, will create stability. The Fenari ambassador leaned forward. And if we refuse, will you use your weapons against us? Will you take what you want by force? Do-hun was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to look at the chamber doors, which had remained open throughout the session. Admiral Yoon Jia walked through them. She wore a simple black uniform. No medals, no decorations. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as she approached the circle. That question is mine to answer, she said. Krath stiffened. Admiral, we did not expect you personally. I know, Jia stopped beside Do-hun. I came because I wanted you to understand something. 6 months ago, you sent 300 ships to destroy us. We sent them home without firing a shot. We could have killed them all. We did not. She looked at each delegate in turn. We could take your systems by force. Our fleet is larger than anything you can field against us now. We have weapons you cannot match. We have technology you cannot understand. Her voice hardened. And we remember every insult, every humiliation, every time your representatives told us to know our place. The chamber was completely silent. But we did not build our strength to become you, Jia continued. We did not spend 60 years preparing so that we could oppress others the way you oppressed us. Conquest would be easy. Building something better is hard. We choose the hard path. She stepped back, letting Do-hun take center stage again. The new compact is not a demand, Do-hun said. It is an offer. Accept it, and humanity will be your partner. Reject it, and we will go our own way, taking those who wish to join us. And the smaller species? The Fenari ambassador asked. The ones who have been reaching out to you since the confrontation? They will be welcome in the new compact, Dohan replied. Equal partners, full members, not servants or tribute payers. The vote was taken. It was not unanimous. The Drovathi abstained, claiming they needed more time. 3 other species voted no, citing tradition and precedent. But 7 voted yes. Minister Krath, after a long pause, was among them. I must ask, Kraft said as the session closed, why offer peace at all, after what we did to your representative, after centuries of treating your species as inferior? Dohan looked at him for a long moment. Because we remember what it felt like to be small. We remember the fear and the anger and the helplessness, and we will not become what we despised. 2 years later, the new compact was fully established. 23 species had joined, including many who had been denied membership under the old system. Conflicts decreased. The galaxy began to change. Admiral Yoon Jia retired to Earth, to a small house by the sea near Busan. She had given her life to preparing humanity for a moment that lasted only a few hours. Now she could rest. General Baek Sunho visited her one evening, bringing a bottle of soju and 2 glasses. They sat on her porch, watching the sun set over the water. Do you think they will ever trust us? Baek asked. Jia considered the question carefully. No, not in our lifetime. Perhaps not ever. They will always remember the moon we shattered. They will always wonder if we might turn those weapons against them someday. Does that bother you? No. Jia took a sip of her drink. Trust takes generations to build. What matters now is that they respect us. They deal with us as equals. In time, respect can become something more. She lifted her glass toward the darkening sky. To the 60 years. Baek echoed. They drank in silence as the stars emerged. The same stars that humanity had once watched from caves and wondered about. The same stars they had reached with primitive rockets and fragile ships. The same stars they now walked among as equals. Far above, a human cargo ship passed through the sky, its lights blinking against the darkness. It was headed for the Vega Corridor, carrying goods to trade with species that had once dismissed humanity as insignificant. Jia watched it until it disappeared. Then she smiled. The journey had been long. The cost had been heavy. But humanity had found its place among the stars. Not the place the Council had assigned them. Not a small corner where they could be ignored and controlled. They had found the place they'd built for themselves. The place they earned through patience and planning and the refusal to accept that the powerful must always rule the weak. Somewhere above, the stars continued to shine. And humanity continued to walk among them, finally free. This was not the ending. It was only the beginning.